Hello, and welcome back to Chicago Reacts, Americans Learn. My name is Colin, and today I'm watching Napoleon's Invasion of Russia, 1812. All right, so last video I watched, looks like there was some back and forth in Spain of English coming in, retaking, was it Madrid? Yeah, I think it was Madrid. And then French retaking Madrid and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of back and forth for the citizens there of certain areas of Spain. But yeah, it's seeming like Napoleon's been losing ground here. And I think we're getting close to the end, at least this part of the Napoleonic Wars. Because I know he gets exiled, and I think he comes back, right, for a little period, maybe. I don't know. I could be dead wrong on that. I'm pretty sure I've said that too in previous videos, but I haven't seen the comments on those yet, so maybe I've been corrected already at this point. But with that being said, let's find out what how Napoleon's invasion of Russia goes. But also be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying this series and want to make sure you get notified about the new videos that come out. So yeah, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Why don't you? All right. Let's bring up the share screen here, and let's get into it, shall we? One must never ask more from fortune than she can grant.
Russia, 1812. Napoleon invades his former ally with the largest army Europe has ever seen. But for the French Emperor, the decisive blow remains frustratingly beyond reach. Russia's resilience is unlike anything he's ever encountered. And as winter closes in, his army begins the most infamous retreat in history. In 1807, following his defeat of the Russian army at Friedland, Napoleon had traveled to Tilsit to meet the Russian Emperor Alexander. During their celebrated encounter, the two emperors formed a friendship and made an alliance. But it was not to last. Over the next 5 years, relations between France and Russia cooled dramatically. The Russians were irritated by Napoleon's creation of a Duchy of Warsaw in Poland, which they regarded as meddling in their own front yard. They feared it would lead to the return of a fully fledged Polish state, a traditional thorn in Russia's side. Then there was Napoleon's offer to marry Alexander's sister, Grand Duchess Anna Pavlovna, to cement their alliance. But the Romanovs hated the idea, and after a year of Russian prevarication, Napoleon married Marie-Louise, daughter of the Austrian emperor, instead.
I feel like I missed something, but in a previous video, didn't they talk about someone else that Napoleon married? Is this that marriage? Are they just coming back to that? I should pay better attention. Anyway, okay, so who is it that he said that actually he did end up marrying?
Napoleon married Marie-Louise,
Marie-Louise,
daughter of the Austrian emperor, instead.
Right, okay. Daughter of the Austrian emperor. I think I do remember that.
Later that year, Napoleon broke a guarantee made at Tilsit and annexed the Duchy of Oldenburg, ruled by Alexander's sister's father-in-law. Worst of all was the fallout over the continent.
Now, what exactly does duchy mean? Are they literally referring to the Dutch? Is that like Duchy of Warsaw? Like where they're, I don't know. What does that mean? Duchy. Like Duchess? I don't know. Someone please educate me in the comments what duchy means exactly. Thank you.
Continental system, Napoleon's not very effective economic blockade against Britain, designed to cripple his most steadfast enemy. Alexander had agreed to join the continental system at Tilsit. But it was hugely unpopular in Russia and ruinous to her finances, during a period of economic crisis. When Napoleon found out that Russia was flouting the rules of the system and had resumed an illicit trade with Britain, he was furious. With both emperors accusing the other of bad faith, their two countries began preparing for war. This video is brought to you by our sponsor, Curiosity Stream, home of more than 2,500 documentaries exploring science, technology, the natural world, history, and more. In fact, there are so many fascinating topics to choose from, sometimes you just have to dive in. If you're a little worried about humanity's future right now, would it be reassuring to know that life can bounce back from a major extinction event? That's what happened 250 million years ago, following the Permian extinction, which we learned this month watching the excellent Breakthrough Recovering from Extinction on Curiosity Stream. There are many other high-end documentaries like this waiting to inform and entertain you on Curiosity Stream, which is available worldwide, and an online subscription starts from just $2.99 a month. Remember to use the promo code EPICHISTORYTV at sign-up to get your first 30 days free. Thanks to Curiosity Stream for sponsoring this video.
At Tilst, Russia swore an eternal alliance with France. Now she breaks her oaths. Does she believe us degenerate? Are we no longer the soldiers of Austerlitz?
Napoleon knew an invasion of Russia was a massive undertaking, especially as he still had an unfinished war in Spain that was tying down more than 200,000 troops. Nevertheless, in 1811 he began to assemble the largest army Europe had ever seen, around 600,000 men, though less than half of them were French. The rest came from allied states across Europe. There was a Polish corps from the Duchy of Warsaw, led by Prince Poniatowski, a corps from each of the German kingdoms of Saxony, Westphalia, and Bavaria, from the Kingdom of Italy, as well as Swiss, Dutch, Croat, Spanish, and Portuguese units scattered throughout the army. There were even contingents from Prussia and Austria, France's recent enemies, now uneasy allies. Some of these allied troops, such as the Poles and Germans, were as reliable as their French counterparts. Others were very inexperienced, or, like the Prussians and Austrians, reluctant to be there at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would imagine a lot of those troops would feel pretty reluctant to fight for Napoleon at this point. Like, that kind of surprising that so many of them are fighting for them. I mean, I assume they don't have much say. But I don't know. If I were Napoleon, I would be reluctant to put my faith in these people, you know, to just assume that they would follow blindly. I mean, he had to have been aware that there are at least a few that didn't want to be there and didn't want to fight. Like, how could you rely on men like that, right? I don't know. Seems strange.
This gigantic formation was deployed in 3 armies. The main force under Napoleon himself, another led by his stepson, Eugene, and a third led by his younger brother, Jerome, King of Westphalia. Neither of these two were experienced commanders. Though one would distinguish himself on campaign, the other would not. On their left flank, Marshal MacDonald led 10th Corps with a large Prussian contingent, while the right flank was guarded by General Schwarzenberg's Austrian Corps. Another 100,000 troops were in reserve, including Marshal Victor's 9th Corps. Initially, the Russians only had 220,000 men to face this juggernaut, organized into Barclay de Tolly's 1st Army, Prince Bagration's 2nd Army, and General Tomasov's 3rd Army. They would be outnumbered 2-1. But in the run-up to war, Russia scored 2 crucial diplomatic triumphs. Sweden had been at war with Russia just 3 years earlier, a conflict which cost her Finland. By a curious turn of events, Sweden was now ruled by Napoleon's ex-marshal.
So the Finnish War, 1808, 1809. So all these wars were going on at the same time, huh? Was this, when did, wasn't this around, like, wasn't that around 1808 and 1809? Wasn't that around the same time that Russia helped out Napoleon earlier? Am I crazy? So I don't know. I guess but the point here is I'm just surprised, but also not surprised that all the wars were happening at the same time. I don't know. What other wars were happening in Europe at this time, besides this Finnish war here? Because it just, you know, I guess I've been lumping them all so far into these Napoleonic wars with Spain and all that stuff. Because I think earlier it was saying that it was being called the Spanish War for Independence. But that's umbrellaed into this whole Napoleonic War series, right? I assume so. Anyway, yeah. All right, I guess let's just move on now.
Marshal Bernadotte, but after Napoleon occupied Swedish Pomerania without warning, a furious Bernadotte promised Russia that Sweden would remain neutral. Meanwhile, a peace treaty with the Ottoman Empire ended Russia's 6-year war against its southern rival. These two agreements secured Russia's flanks from any strategic threat.
Right, so, wait a second. I think I had a little bit of a brain fart or something going on there, but okay. So, as far as other wars taking place around this time, here we go. Russo-Turkish War, 1806, 1812.
Southern rival. These two agreements secured Russia's flanks from any strategic threat and freed up troops to face Napoleon's invasion.
So, like, what were... He said, like, long-standing rivals, but what spurred that war there with the... did I miss that, too, with the Ottoman Empire? Hang on a second.
Neutral. Meanwhile, a peace treaty with the Ottoman Empire ended Russia's 6-year war against its southern rival.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. See, sometimes my brain goes elsewhere, but I have to come back. So, okay, so they were signing a peace treaty to end that conflict there. But, so it started in 1806. What was the impetus for that war? What was going on there? I guess that's another video series to react to. Hopefully, Epic History TV has a series on that. I'll be happy to check those out as well. Because I know the Ottoman Empire was around for a long, long time, so I'm sure there's a lot of history there. So, yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out for some Ottoman Empire material from Epic History TV.
These two agreements secured Russia's flanks from any strategic threat and freed up troops to face Napoleon's invasion. On the 24th of June 1812, French troops began crossing the Niemen River into Russian territory. The army was so large, the crossing took 5 days.
Oh, wow.
Napoleon's plan was to attack north of the impassable Pripet marshes and defeat Barclay's army, while Jérôme pinned Bagration in place. French forces would then swing south to trap Bagration. Napoleon expected the campaign to be over in 5 weeks. But the sheer size of the French army convinced the cautious Barclay that retreat was his only option. Prince Bagration, a much more aggressive commander by instinct, and often Barclay's fierce critic, was forced to agree. As they withdrew, they burned villages and crops, part of a scorched earth strategy to deny supplies to the enemy. In 4 days, Napoleon had reached Vilnius, but Barclay was gone. To the south, Jérôme failed to pin down Bagration. So when Davout's First Corps swung southeast to trap him, he'd already withdrawn to safety. Napoleon's younger brother was out of his depth, stung by the Emperor's criticism, humiliated when his troops were put under Marshal Davout's command. He resigned his post and returned to Westphalia. The campaign was already beginning to expose serious flaws in Napoleon's plan. Knowing his troops would struggle to live off the land in this impoverished region, he'd organized huge supply depots and transport units to feed the army. But wagons rolled slowly along Russia's bad roads, which were turned to rivers of mud by summer thunderstorms. The army had to make frequent stops to allow its supplies to catch up. Bad news for Napoleon's plan to catch the Russians, but a much-needed relief for the many thousands of young conscripts in his army, not used to hard marches day after day. Many were soon dropping out with exhaustion. Others deserted. There were also huge problems of command and control over a vast multinational army that was 3 times bigger than any Napoleon had commanded before. La Grande Armée, once famed for its speed of maneuver, had become a lumbering beast. After a pause to rest and regroup at Vilnius, Napoleon resumed his advance. Barclay continued his retreat to Vitebsk, where he hoped Bagration's Second Army would be able to join him. But Davout blocked Bagration's path at Sultanovka, forcing him to make for Smolensk instead. At Vitebsk, Napoleon clashed with Barclay's rearguard, but once more the Russians escaped, after setting fire to all the stores they couldn't take with them. Meanwhile, 300 miles away, on Napoleon's southern flank, Russian Third Army attacked and defeated the Saxon 7th Corps, forcing Napoleon to divert Schwarzenberg's Austrian Corps to their aid. By the end of July, Napoleon had advanced 250 miles into Russia, much further than he'd planned. And the long marches in extreme summer heat continued to take a heavy toll on his men. Without fighting a major battle, the army had already suffered 20% casualties, from exhaustion and illness, particularly typhus and dysentery. The army had entered Russia with 250,000 horses, but they were now dying at a rate of 1,000 every day, from exhaustion and lack of fodder. It wasn't just cavalry horses that were dying, but the very horses that were supposed to haul the army's transport wagons, making a bad situation worse.
Yeah, that's not good.
This crisis in horsepower came just as the French light cavalry, Napoleon's eyes and ears, met their match in Russia's Cossacks. Cossacks, self-reliant, proud, ruthless, and superb horsemen, didn't play by the same rules as other European cavalry. Every day they shadowed Napoleon's army, swooping in whenever they saw an easy target, but melting away into the forests if they were attacked by a stronger force. Cossacks, as well as Russian partisans, made hit-and-run attacks on French supply lines and depots, forcing Napoleon to divert thousands of troops to their defense. Alongside Russian regular light cavalry, they also prevented French patrols from carrying out reconnaissance, which meant that Napoleon often lacked good information about roads or the enemy's whereabouts. Napoleon stayed 16 days at Vitebsk, resting his troops and considering his options. Among his many mounting concerns was the security of his long, exposed flanks. But at Vitebsk, he received news that Schwarzenberg had defeated the Russians at Gorodezhna. A week later at Polotsk, a French Bavarian force fought Wittgenstein's Russian First Corps to a standstill. Napoleon's flanks were secure, for now. Although his main force had been reduced to less than half its original strength, Napoleon decided to push on to Smolensk and try to force the Russians into a decisive battle for the city. Barclay was indeed under pressure to give battle from fellow commander Prince Bagration and Emperor Alexander in St. Petersburg. The army's morale and Russia's honor required it, they told him. With the First and Second Russian armies finally linking up near Smolensk, Barclay decided to attack Napoleon's army, which he believed was concentrated around Rudnya. The offensive was led by General Platov's Cossacks, who surprised a French cavalry division at Inkova. But alarmed by false reports that Eugene's 4th Corps was outflanking him to the north, Barclay called off the attack. Napoleon, reassured that Barclay's offensive posed no real threat, began a grand outflanking move to the south to take Smolensk and cut off the Russian retreat. The so-called Smolensk maneuver was Napoleon at his best, using Murat's cavalry to screen his movements and keep Barclay in the dark. The Emperor reached the Dnieper on the evening of the 13th of August. His engineers quickly threw up 4 pontoon bridges, and by dawn the next day, his army was across. Marshal Davout led a second column across the river at Orsha. But a single Russian division, the 27th, fought a heroic fighting retreat from Krasny, delaying the French advance and buying time for Bagration to reinforce the Smolensk garrison. The chance for a surprise assault on the city was lost. And as the Russian army began to pull back, Napoleon displayed an uncharacteristic lack of urgency, even halting the army for a parade to mark his 43rd birthday. When the main attack...
Yeah, that's letting your ego get the better of you, isn't it? They haven't talked too much about that yet so far throughout this video series, Napoleon's ego. You know, any dictator, like authoritarian leader, history has shown to have quite the ego, don't they? Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see or to hear more about that, people's one-on-one interpretations or impressions of Napoleon during this time. People who worked with him or worked beside him or were in the room, you know, when it happened. Like people who were able to get a sense of what kind of person Napoleon really was. I want to learn more about that. I would also be curious to see how the lay people, the normal average citizens, were reacting to all of this. You know, what were the ground politics like during this period? Anywho, if you know any like good books or other video series that kind of dive into that a little bit more, let me know. Let me know in the comments. All right, let's keep going.
Attack on Smolensk began 2 days later. Napoleon opted for a frontal assault. 150 French guns battered the city as 3 French corps attacked its medieval fortifications. The Russians resisted bravely, but Barclay, fearing encirclement, ordered another retreat. With Smolensk in flames, the Russians began to pull out. Just as the French fought their way into the city, to scenes of utter devastation. Bagration's Second Army withdrew first. As Barclay's army followed, its rearguard was caught by Ney's Third Corps at Valutino. General Junot, commanding the Westphalian 8th Corps, had orders to cut off Barclay's retreat. But having crossed the river, he did nothing, and the opportunity was lost.
Did nothing?
A furious Napoleon swore that Junot would never now win his marshal's baton.
Okay, I hope they explain a little bit why. Like, why did he do nothing? He crossed the river. Why did he stop? Let's see.
The Battle of Smolensk cost both...
Okay, no, it doesn't seem like they're going to explain why he just stopped. Does anyone know? If anyone knows, like, what prevented him from attacking, let me know in the comments, because that seems like a good way to get fired, at the very least. Yeah. Yeah, someone let me know if you know the answer to that.
Sides around 10,000 casualties, and destroyed one of Russia's most historic and holy cities, but settled nothing.
Famous last words, right?
After the missed chance to defeat the Russians at Smolensk, Napoleon paused once more to consider his options. His men were weary and far from home, and it was already late in the campaigning season. He considered sitting out the Russian winter at Smolensk and resuming the campaign in 1813. But now he was just 230 miles from Moscow.
Yeah.
A century earlier, Peter the Great had moved Russia's capital to St. Petersburg. But Moscow remained its historic and spiritual heart, a prize for which the Russians had to fight. Napoleon, always a gambler, decided to push on. The Russians faced their own dilemma. Emperor Alexander had experienced a kind of religious epiphany that summer and rallied the Russian people to the country's defense, describing the war with Napoleon as a war to save Holy Mother Russia from the Antichrist. For months, the emperor had received conflicting advice to stand and fight or retreat. Now he decided change was needed. The cautious General Barclay kept his job, but the emperor summoned General Mikhail Kutuzov to take overall command of Russia's armies. Kutuzov had been beaten by Napoleon at Austerlitz 7 years before, but he'd since won several victories against the Ottoman Empire and was a true Russian.
No, I'm looking at the painting of this guy here, this General Mikhail, and his right eye is white. Is that just the painting itself? Like somehow that iris got faded out, or was he missing an eye and had like, or was he blind in one eye? That's kind of what it looks like. I don't know. If it's not explained in a couple seconds here, someone let me know. I've been asking a lot of questions now. This video, I feel like I've said, put it in the comments for me a lot. This video, but yeah, if it's not explained, let me know in the comments.
Loved by the troops. Although Kutuzov agreed with Barclay's strategy of delay, he saw that constant retreats were destroying the soldiers' and the nation's morale. If Moscow was given up without a battle, the fallout could be disastrous. And so, 70 miles west of the city, near the village of Borodino, the Russian army prepared to make a stand. Europe was about to witness the bloodiest day's fighting of the Napoleonic Wars. Thank you to all our Patreon supporters for making this series possible. Visit our Patreon page to find out how you too can support the channel, get exclusive updates, ad-free early access, and help us to choose future topics. And did you know we have a new range of Napoleon-themed merch for sale? Click the merch shelf below, or follow the links to find out more.
All right. Whoop. Oh, don't want to go into the next one. We'll save that for next time. All right. Okay, yeah. Well, if you've stuck around this long, thanks for sticking around. I hope you're enjoying the series here. So again, we're not quite at the end yet. I'm assuming, you know, this moving forward into Russia is not going to play out super well for Napoleon here. If my vague recollection recollects, yeah, it doesn't go well. You know, again, my history knowledge is very much limited, but I do remember that invading Russia hasn't turned out super well for a lot of people throughout history. So, yeah, looking to see how Napoleon gets his comeuppance in the next videos. So, be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you want to stay informed, stay tuned in this series here. But yeah, thanks for Epic History TV on putting together this awesome educational series here. Alrighty. With that being said, thanks again for coming, and I'll see y'all next time.